Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter says the United States will launch direct action on the ground against the self-proclaimed Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Speaking before a Senate panel, Carter outlined the ramped-up U.S. campaign against ISIL.
Third and final R is raids, signaling that we won't hold back from supporting capable partners in opportunistic attacks against ISIL or conducting such missions directly, whether by strikes from the air or direct action on the ground.
The Pentagon is also intensifying airstrikes against ISIL, and Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marine General Joseph Dunford, told the Senate panel he would consider recommending more U.S. soldiers be placed with Iraqi troops.
And if it had operational or strategic impact and we could reinforce success, that would be the basic framework within which I'd make a recommendation for additional forces to be co-located with Iraqi units.
Turkey has acknowledged it attacked Kurdish fighters allied with the United States in Syria. The Kurdish People's Protection Units, or YPG, said Turkey attacked them over the weekend. While Turkey and the United States are working together to fight ISIL in Syria, Turkey's also battling Kurdish militias, who are key U.S. allies in the fight against ISIL. The U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has bombed a Doctors Without Borders hospital. Doctors Without Borders said hospital staff and 2 patients managed to escape as the hospital was hit multiple times over a 2-hour period Monday night. The hospital's roof was marked with the Doctors Without Border logo, and the GPS coordinates have been shared multiple times with the Saudi-led coalition, most recently just 2 weeks ago. Doctors Without Borders' Megerdich Terzian described the damage.
Several airstrikes happened in the zone, including the hospital have been hit, and 99% of the compound is destroyed now. It was around midnight yesterday, so it was a miracle for me that we didn't have any victims, despite the fact that all the staff were in the hospital and they were considering that the hospital is a safe place to stay during the night. So it was not the case, unfortunately.
Thousands of Palestinians have rallied in the occupied West Bank, calling for Israel to release the bodies of Palestinians killed by security forces for allegedly attacking Israelis. Clashes with the Israeli military reportedly left 143 Palestinians wounded. The rally came as 3 Palestinians were shot dead Tuesday by Israeli soldiers who accused them of attempting to stab Israeli soldiers. Federal authorities have launched a civil rights investigation to determine if a white sheriff's deputy in South Carolina broke the law when he slammed an African-American high school student to the ground in her classroom. Ben Fields was operating as a school resource officer at Spring Valley High School. Viral video shows him grabbing the student around her neck, flipping both her and her desk to the ground, then dragging her across the floor. The student was arrested. Another student, Nia Kenny, who filmed the assault, was also arrested and held on a $1,000 bail. Kenny spoke to WLTX.
I was in disbelief. I know this girl don't got nobody, and I couldn't believe this was happening. I'd never seen nothing like that in my life. Like, a man used that much force on a little girl, a big man, like 300 pounds, a full muscle. I was like, no way, no way. Like, you can't do that to no little girl. I'm talking about she like 5'6". And I was screaming, what the F, what the F? Is this really happening? I was praying out loud for the girl, and I couldn't believe it was happening. I was just crying, and he was like, well, since you got so much to say, you coming too. And I was like, what? And he would, you want some of this? And just put my hands behind my back.
The incident reportedly began when the student refused to give her teacher her phone, prompting the teacher to call Deputy Sheriff Fields to remove her. Fields has been placed on administrative leave. We'll have more on the case after headlines. In other news from South Carolina, a local prosecutor says a police officer who fatally shot a white 19-year-old who was sitting in his car will not face criminal charges. Seneca Police Lieutenant Mark Tiller shot Zachary Hammond through the open window of his car in July. Police claim Hammond drove his car at officers after they asked him to put his hands on the wheel during a drug sting. Attorneys for Hammond's family say he was not given a chance to put his hands up. Federal authorities are still investigating the shooting. The United Nations General Assembly has voted to condemn the U.S. embargo on Cuba for the 24th year. The United States had reportedly considered abstaining from the vote as Cuba and the United States worked to restore diplomatic ties. The UN vote condemning the embargo was 191-2. Only Israel voted with the United States in opposition. The Senate has passed a bill critics say will expand mass surveillance by allowing corporations to share sensitive user data with the government under the guise of cybersecurity. The Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, or CISA, would give corporations who share bulk user data with the government immunity from Freedom of Information Act or FOIA requests related to the data sharing. Critics include tech companies like Apple and NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, who tweeted, quote, "A vote for CISA is a vote against the Internet." A key witness in Chevrons' effort to avoid paying for environmental contamination in the Ecuadorian Amazon has admitted he lied. In 2011, a group of indigenous plaintiffs won a landmark $9 billion judgment for widespread contamination from toxic dumping by Texaco, which Chevron later bought. But last year, in a victory for Chevron, a U.S. judge ruled the plaintiffs used corrupt means to win. Much of Chevron's defense rested on former Ecuadorian judge Alberto Guerra, who claimed the plaintiffs offered him a $300,000 bribe to ghostwrite the ruling in their favor. But newly released documents from a secret tribunal in Washington show Guerra repudiated many of his allegations and admitted to lying about the bribe. The group Amazon Watch said in a statement, "Guerra has so thoroughly perjured himself, he should be behind bars, and so should Chevron management," Amazon Watch wrote. In Nicaragua, thousands of rural residents from across the country flocked to the capital, Managua, Tuesday to protest the construction of a canal linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The $50 billion project will be larger than the Panama Canal and could displace up to 120,000 people. Farmer Rafael Angel Bermudez was among those calling for the repeal of a 2013 law allowing a Chinese firm to expropriate land in order to build the canal.
I am a producer. They want to take our land with this canal. Here, the fight is ours. We don't want a canal. Get rid of Law 840 and we won't continue. It's Law 840 that we want them to get rid of, so we can work in peace and not waste our time here with this march.
Many Nicaraguan residents traveled days to attend the protest in Managua. Police reportedly set up multiple roadblocks in a bid to prevent them from reaching Managua. The Pentagon has awarded Northrop Grumman a more than $20 billion contract to build new long-range stealth bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. It's the largest Pentagon contract in more than a decade and could eventually be valued at $80 billion and yield 100 new bombers. A new poll shows retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson has pulled ahead of business mogul Donald Trump in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. The New York Times CBS News poll showed Carson with 26% support and Trump with 22%. The next Republican debate takes place tonight in Boulder, Colorado. We'll have more on it tomorrow on the broadcast. And the House is expected to vote on a bipartisan budget deal today as Republicans are set to nominate Wisconsin Congressmember Paul Ryan to become the new House Speaker. The two-year budget includes cuts to Social Security disability benefits and Medicare payments to providers. New revenue would come from sales of U.S. strategic oil reserves and the use of public airwaves for telecommunications firms. Senator Rand Paul, who's seeking the Republican presidential nomination, has vowed to filibuster the budget when it reaches the Senate. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Good.